What's up, everybody in Grip World? This is Jedd Johnson. They call me Napalm, and I'm joined by Alan Hynek. And a little bit later on, we'll have the 2018 North American Grip Sport Absolute Champion Luke Raymond on with us as well. This is episode 55 of This Week in Grip, and to start off, I want to ask you a question. Did you know that grip training might just make you live forever? Well, it might protect you against heart disease anyway. I'm going to share an article with you in just a minute, but before I do that, remember to hit the like button as you listen today. Everyone you hear on This Week in Grip is doing this because they love grip, so show your support by clicking like today. Also, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on anything you'd like to in the comments section below. And now a story from DeccanHerald.com. Grip strength may be a good predictor of the risk of cardiovascular disease. Researchers studied 691 people, ages 35 to 70, in 17 high, middle, and low-income countries. They gathered data on height, weight, blood pressure, physical activity, dietary intake, and other factors. Adjusted for age and height, average male grip ranged from about 67 to 84 pounds. For women, it ranged from 54 to 62 pounds. The study is in The Lancet. Over the next 4 years, 3,379 people died. After controlling for other variables, the scientists calculated that each 11-pound decrease in grip strength was associated with a 17% increased risk of cardiovascular death, a 7% increased risk of heart attack, and a 9% increased risk of stroke. There was no association of grip strength with diabetes, pneumonia, falls, or fractures, but it was a stronger indicator of all-cause death and of cardiovascular death than systolic blood pressure. The lead author, Dr. Darrell P. Long, an assistant professor of medicine at McMaster University in Ontario, said that it was unclear if grip strength is just a marker of good health or if increasing it by training would lower cardiovascular disease. So even the healthcare professionals are unsure of that. But he added, as physicians, we recommend exercising most days a week, and this sort of study says we should be including resistance training as part of it. Now, to clarify, and this is Napalm talking, I don't think just because you close grippers and pinch blobs and compete in grip sport, you're going to live forever. However, if you make grip and strength training a regular part of your life, eat wisely and watch your weight, you're going to be a lot better off than if you didn't, brother. So I encourage you to make grip strength training a lifetime pursuit starting right now. And if you want the absolute best information on how to train your grip, then there's no better place than thegripauthority.com. The Grip Authority website was launched in 2010, so it's already over 8 years old, and it's packed with information on just about every single type of grip training and feat of strength you can think of. Grippers are covered in extreme detail, as well as all forms of pinching, thick bar, the inch dumbbell, grip contest preparation, grip programming, steel bending, phone book tearing, and much, much more. I've literally put up 2 to 5 new features every single month since January of 2010, so this site is loaded. Alan has been a member since 2013 or 2014, and pinch monsters like Jake Salaney and Harry Talonen are both members as well and have credited the information on the website with assisting them towards their monstrous pinch numbers and world records. If you want to be the best you can be in grip sport, thegripauthority.com is the site you need to be on. Gripauthority.com. Click the link in the description box below to join today for just $1. Alan, how have you been, dude?
I've been hanging in there. Things are going pretty good. How you doing?
Good. How's your recovery, man? How's your rehab and everything going?
It's moving along. I'm at about the 10-week point now, so a lot of the range of motion is coming back, but pretty much just using the weight of my arm for things these days. So, but yep, things are at least heading in the right direction anyway.
Are you getting any grip work in with your uninjured arm?
Yes. I've noticed that the strength loss has been kind of global with regards to, my injury. It's definitely affected the other side as well. But I am doing a lot of work with that. I'm actually able to do grippers with my right arm, the injured arm. That's about the only thing I can do, and like extensor stuff, But
sure.
Everything else is out. So, but yeah, getting some work in, doing what I can to try to keep things up. So.
Cool. Where are we at with uses of the This Week in Grip hashtag, Alan? Have you checked?
Yeah, as of just a moment ago, we were at 1,567. So that took quite a bump over what we had seen the last time we did this year, when it jumped up about 100. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
100, it looks like. So, yep.
People are on the move with that. That's good.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, everybody, we're going to be talking with Luke Raymond, who is the absolute champion from the North American Grip Sport Championships 2018, and Luke is on with us. Luke, how are you doing, bro?
I'm doing fantastic. A little sore from our workout yesterday, but overall feeling pretty good.
Yeah, Luke went ahead and did, 7 hours of arm wrestling training on Friday, and then another 3 hours of grip work on Saturday?
It was enough. I know that.
7 hours of arm wrestling training.
No, it was probably 4 hours total, with 2.5 in the gym, hour in between. We went and got lunch, and then we went back and did some table time. So a little bit of everything.
Cool. Now, I know you got a new truck, Luke. I haven't been in it yet. Have you installed the thing that Lincoln Hawk has in his truck in over the top? Any kind of things that you've been working on in your vehicle while you've been driving? You have
3
a
of them,
set in
actually.
there yet or anything
3
like that?
3 of them. No.
3?
No. I have actually used the band, like on the passenger side door. Only a few days here and there. It's not anything I do on a regular, but a lot more for just recovery versus true muscle building or anything like that.
So what a lot of people may not be aware of, on top of the grip strength prowess that Luke has, he also made his entrance into arm wrestling in 2016, Luke? Is that what it was? 2016,
November.
and became...
October will be 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be in arm wrestling. So 2015.
And then
my first tournament was in October. Yeah.
And then you won an amateur national championship in something like the summer of
June,
2016.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Okay. Cool. So Luke's been involved since 2013 when I ran a grip contest called the Hold Fast Gauntlet at my home, and since then, he really took off right away after that first contest. But we're going to find out more about Luke today. And I've also opened up questions on Facebook, and I see there's a couple that have come in that we're going to get to. So we're going to be talking a lot about the North American Grip Sport Championship 2018. And, Alan, I sent you all of the stats from the competition. Were you able to receive that?
I was, yeah. It's, for whatever reason, some of those things are a little difficult to view. It comes through kind of funny. I'm looking at it through like this Microsoft, Office kind of thing.
Right.
And it sort of scrolls weird. It's done on a smartphone, so it kind of actually ran into an issue similar to this with King Kong last year. But so I can follow it, but it's just kind of a pain in the butt a little bit. But I'm looking at everything right now on it. Yeah,
it's a giant spreadsheet, so I can understand that if you're looking on a smartphone, because everything's got to be converted and all that stuff, but I can run down most of it. So Luke was in the 93 kilo class along with Matt Lane and Eric Rusain. Matt is from Wilkes-Barre area here in Pennsylvania, so he's a fairly local guy. And then Eric Rusain drove in from Canada. He's up around Ottawa. And Eric was actually on the show with me for episode 54. So if you want to check out episode 54, that is in the archives of the channel, and it's titled This Week in Grip. episode 54 looking ahead to the NAGS championship. So if you need to stop this right now because it's a bunch of spoilers, then go ahead and listen to the other one first. But let's go ahead and get started, Alan. Why don't you go ahead and start things off, and we'll find out what's up.
Okay. So I guess, Luke, why don't you give us a rundown of the competition, how things look, the opening event. Give me an overview. I actually didn't get a chance to see much of it, the real-time event on Facebook when I was looking at it. Every time I tuned in, it was kind of like in between events. So I had a hard time following it, and I actually didn't get to read some of the contest reports up until today. So I'm actually a little behind, so you can bring me up to speed.
Well, as far as the gripper event, we obviously all knew that pretty much Jedd was going to dominate that. But with the people that were there, I wasn't really sure as far as who would be kind of in the second place. I knew that Eric and I were probably pretty close, going to be in the 150s. I wasn't sure about anybody else as far as their gripper closing ability. So part of I don't know if we've even explained any of that. Part of the event was we were doing a team championship. So at the beginning of the contest, we actually had to determine 3 people from each team that we wanted to utilize in each event. So obviously you try to pick people's strengths, try to figure out who's on your team, but you could only use someone for 3 events. You couldn't use them for any more than that. So we had actually picked that was not one of my events. I felt like I was probably one of the better gripper closers in the U.S. other than Jedd. But I was being used for the medley and wrist roller and pinch, which were obviously more along my strengths. But I was also worried about, I had a middle finger injury at the Philly contest, actually chalking the hub. That's how I injured my finger. Yes, chalking the hub. And closing a gripper and double overhand deadlift on a regular bar are really the 2 things that bother it more than anything else. Nothing else really bothers it. So I was worried I was going to have to do left-handed close versus a right-handed close. So stronger right-handed, I took my first attempt with a 155 gripper. I was like, that's my goal gripper. I'm going to do it first try, right-handed, see how it goes. Bam, closed it. And I'm like, well, I met my goal, but I'm going to give 160 a try. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it. And after each attempt, the pain was pretty significant in the finger, but it dissipated after a few minutes. So I felt pretty good about the whole event in general, just because of I kind of hit my goal where I wanted to be, and overall my finger wasn't feeling too bad.
And then I just want to add, if anybody's hearing these numbers and thinking, why is he only closing a 150 gripper? These grippers are all rated using the RGC system. They were all rated by Matt Cannon, and it's a set that since 2014 has only ever been used at the North American Grip Sport Championship. So the numbers may sound lower than you would expect. So a 150, 155 gripper is equal to like a very, very hard number 3. And even though the numbers that are assigned to most grippers are much higher by companies like Ironmind, the numbers that we get on the RGC are much lower because the rating is done at the end of the handle, and they're actual legit numbers that are done by a mechanism that has been proven time and time again to be very consistent, repeatable, and reliable. So all of the grippers were rated on the same system because one system to the next can cause slight variation, and they were done by the same guy. They were done in a very short time period, and they're also actually all the same company's grippers. They're all Tedding grippers that were made by Warren Tedding himself. So you can't get a much more complete set. They run from 80 pounds to 210 pounds, and you also can't really find a set that's got such consistency from all the other variables as far as the apparatus used and the person that did the testing. So the set is really, really an awesome set of grippers. And like Luke said, the best close was 190 by Jedd, and then the second place close, it looks like it was done by at least 3 or 4 other people, was the 155 mark. So that gave Luke second place and gave the other lifters who got 155 8.16 points versus Chedd's 10 points. Because how the scoring goes is, in grip sport, when you finish first place, you automatically get 10 points, or 100, depending on what scale you're using, but we use the 10-point scale. And then your score is factored by the first place performance. So Luke's close of 155 would be divided by 190, and that's where he gets his score of 8.16. So that's where we're at after the first event. So hopefully that makes sense for everybody. And if you have any questions on that, leave a comment in the comment section, and maybe we can go over that in more detail sometime down the line. Anything else, Luke, from that event that is worth highlighting?
Well, I think most people, like even Jedd, who ended up winning the event, feel that the grippers, because they've been used so little, actually feel a little harder than what they're used to. So that if you've been training on a 155 gripper is what you've been hitting in training, you've closed it how many times? It may actually only be like 153 because you've closed it 200 times. But these have been closed less than 20 times together. Even though they were oiled, they were cleaned, they just felt stiff. But they're the same for everybody, so there's no error in that for going across the board. So every nationals is the same gripper, same contest.
Well, you know what, I don't
great
know
point
about you guys, but you know how these grippers are in 5-pound jumps. Grippers for me rate right up there the same way as, like, you know, the hub does or anything else. You throw 5 pounds on something, that might as well be 100 pounds on certain lifts.
Yeah,
you know, that's
definitely
just a make or break weight. Yeah, that's huge. So,
absolutely,
no doubt about it.
Nice. Okay. So what was our? Just trying to follow through this. The second event must have been 2-hand pinch, right?
That's correct. Yes, right into the Euro, and we used 2 different apparatus. They're the same 2 that have been used since 2014. As far as I know, as far as I remember, the only contest where we didn't have 2 implements going was last year in Nashville. So we had the 58 millimeters. We had almost like 10 people or something like that doing 58 millimeters. So one setup was dedicated to 58 millimeters, and then the other widths that were being used were being done on the other apparatus. So it actually made the event flow really, really well. It was real smooth. I think at my estimation, it was only about 70 minutes that it took us to run the event, and sometimes with 2-hand pinch on the Euro, you're looking at 2 and sometimes closer to 3 hours, especially at nationals with so many competitors. So I was ecstatic with how well it ran, and that really, I mean, you have to credit Jim Storch, who, I don't know if you know that name, Alan, but Jim Storch is like an outstanding nationally ranked masters competitor of Olympic weightlifting, and he's from Elmira, and he's done several grip competitions. So he showed up out of nowhere, volunteered to help out, and it was just at the right time because he was able to help us out with the 2-hand pinch loading. And also one of my lifters from my gym, Dawson Brown from Northeast Bradford High School, came up, and he helped too. So that was huge because at the time I was thinking that I was going to be doing most of the loading myself. So it worked out phenomenally. It was just fantastic. And then Luke actually made a bunch of adjustments on the implement during the event as well, which I didn't really like to see because he was competing and I wasn't. But we got everything taken care of, and you know, we might still be running the 2-hand pinch now if we didn't have all that help. So, but it made the event run real smooth. So.
Sure. How are those implements coming along? They start the season up really nice.
Yeah, they're getting a good amount of seasoning on them for never being used. They literally sit in the same spot all the time, and I pretty much stored them in the same spot ever since they were like put together and assembled, at least the plates anyway. So we did get new pipes that were exactly the same length, and we did get new sets of spin lock collars for the insides because we were having trouble with the spin lock collars that we have been using for the last few years. They were sliding, and we ended up breaking a couple of them because we were trying to over-tighten them on the pipe at the grip games contest in February. So we had to replace a few sets, and but now we're back in business. We got some good ones. One thing that
what kind did you go with?
What's that?
What kind did you go with in the end on the spin locks?
Just like Yorks.
Oh, okay,
York
okay.
Nines, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, Luke ended up picking up a couple pairs off of eBay, I think. Right, buddy?
Yep. Yeah,
so I got mine.
I had actually drilled a hole through my previous set to put like a bolt through it. Well, it actually caused it to weaken. So when I really tightened it down as hard as I could, it actually snapped right where the drill hole was. I mean, it's 5/8 thick cast, so I didn't think a 1/4-inch drill hole in the center of it would really bother it too much, but obviously it did enough. So, so that pair is out the window.
So it looks like you had the top number on the two-hand pinch.
Yep. So so I was actually pretty pleased with the seasoning on it. But I had actually had my Euro in the back room, and I was actually doing practice lifts on it just to try to stay warm, because as people were working up, I didn't want to jump in and take too many warm-ups just because I feel like it's time-consuming, and I have a set in the back that I can use. So my set is obviously significantly more seasoned, so pulling on that, I knew that I wasn't going to probably be able to do nearly as much on the actual NAGS set, but they felt pretty good. Edges were a little sharper than I prefer, and I think there was a few people that did cutting, but so Rob McMurray and I were actually the final two. Justin had taken his final attempt at 208, so it was just Rob and I that had attempts left. And instead of jumping from 208 and adding 5 pounds total to 213, we actually went to 218. And neither of us were able to get it. I was able to break it off the ground, but not actually able to lift it, which I did lift it later, about 10 minutes later after taking a few more attempts on it. But
that's the
name of the game. That's the difference.
Yeah. Nice.
So I wasn't exactly happy. I mean, I was happy I won the event, but considering what I've done in training, I had done up to 230 in training, so it's significantly lower than what I've done. And I was actually hitting my warm-up singles in the back on 218, and I did probably 10 of them pretty easily. But
how much have you pulled on the? Oh, go ahead.
Just a little bit different implements, different texture. Obviously, makes a huge difference on a friction lift.
Mm-hmm. How much have you pulled on the competition setup before?
223 is the most I've done in a contest. 231 is the most I've done in training.
Okay. Nice.
And it should be noted that in addition to the implement being a little bit better in the back as far as texture was concerned, I went back. I didn't know he was doing this, but he had it loaded with 35s and 45s. So have you ever pinched on a Euro that's loaded with 45s, Alan?
No, I haven't. I haven't tried that.
Okay, so it's virtually impossible to tilt it unless you kind of like pick the back up before you actually take your attempt. So he was hitting 218 or whatever he said on an implement that was almost straight up and down. So he definitely had
no
more
risk involvement at all. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there was definitely more in the tank. It just wasn't getting carried over to that implement for whatever reason. So I've always thought that the competition plates have felt slippery. Even when they get like that surface rust on them, they just never really feel that good. So that
by 2020
factor.
or so, would be 2025. We should be good as far as the texture.
Yeah, because they never get used, so they don't. There's something to be said about actually getting hands onto a Euro in order to season it that way, and just getting more and more chalk buildup and things like that, and that's just not happening with these plates. So you can always expect to have your numbers down when using these. I don't know anybody that's PR'd on these plates, to be honest with you. But it went a lot better this year than it did last year, or at least 2 years ago, Luke. As I recall, it took you 3 or 4 attempts to actually get a legal lift at like 206 or something like that.
201 was my opening lift, and I failed at it twice. So my third attempt, I finally lifted it after about freaking out mentally.
Right.
So what you need to
definitely
do is get John McCarter out there for one of these things already, and that way between him and Luke, and they could work their chalk magic, and they could probably get these things just like it's a 40-year-old Euro, you know.
Yes.
Get some crazy seasoning on that in just a matter of minutes.
The Euro is one thing that is different for me, though. I don't like tons and tons of chalk on it.
Okay.
So it is something texture-wise, like versus a blob. Like I put as much chalk as a blob will ever hold, but as far as the Euro, I'm not a big fan of that. There's a right amount of chalk that creates the right texture for me, and a lot of times if it's too much, it actually makes it worse. So,
I see. Okay.
And it depends on the texture, like how much patina is on the steel plates versus how much chalk you can put on it, and it feels good. So, like my 208 temp felt amazing, like perfect, but with other people grabbing it and then slightly chalk difference, the 218 didn't feel nearly as good. Obviously, 10 pounds heavier does change that, but
yeah, right. Yep. Nice. Okay.
Then our third event. We'll actually break down the chalk sometimes in like the middle of a Euro training session because it gets to be too excessive. So we'll take a scrubby to it and knock all that chalk off and get back to a base. Because it seems to be too much can be a problem.
And I think there's a lot. I think that honestly, pure strength-wise, there's a lot of people that in grip that are probably stronger than I am. But I think with my analysis between the texture of things, positioning, just the technical side of grip, how I can try to utilize everything I can to my advantage. I think a lot of people don't think like that, and I think that's sometimes not necessarily, it hinders their ability, but it's just not the way they're wired. So
that's a like
really later in the
point.
like the medley, the way I think about. I mean, we'll get to it later, but like just the planning of how to do a medley, like what are you doing first, like just stuff like that makes a huge difference on fatigue levels, a lot of things.
You know, I tend to like obsess, like when I'm not near any of my grip stuff, about technique and things like that. But then it seems like once you set one of those things in front of me, that all goes out the door, and I just start grabbing. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a huge part of that with the technique and all that. Even what you said with the chalk, I've observed that before too. But it seems like some of that kind of gets thrown out the window at the last minute for me for whatever reason. So
I think a lot of people do that, Alan. I think the preparation is one thing, and they're very meticulous, it seems. And then once they get to a contest, I don't know if they just get tightened up or they lose their focus or whatever it is. A lot of that stuff, like you said, goes right out the window. And, you know, I can see from training videos people lift one way, and then they go up to the implement in the contest and they're like rushing, they don't have their grip seated properly, they don't angle the device, you know, whatever the case may be. And then that causes missed lifts and frustration. And then once you get all pissed off and then you start pressing even harder, and it can make things even more difficult in order to recover and come back and even get an opening lift. So
right.
That's something that comes with experience, I think, and just being able to keep yourself centered and focused when things aren't going your way. I mean, I've had those problems too, where I don't think about stuff right and rush or get distracted. So. Yeah,
you know, you might as well be eating chicken wings between attempts if you're doing that kind of stuff. You know, it's just
Yeah, and sometimes it's like tempo, like the one actual Tom Bryson from Canada. He actually failed on like 15 pounds lighter two-hand pinch than what he ended up getting because he was pulling quickly off the floor versus pulling slowly until you created tension, and then once it started coming off the ground, then you can speed up your lift. And as soon as he did that, he was able to lift. He ended up doing 15 more pounds, which is obviously a lot compared to what you'd want to do. Because he actually ripped his grip right off, and then it started to slip, and then as he lifted it just came out. So small things like that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I hope people are listening close here, because I'm actually making some notes on this. These are some things I got to look out for in my own training, I think. Maybe videotape more of it, because
one of the attempts I actually took, I actually went up, grabbed it, and I actually didn't like the way. So I was like already in position to lift. I actually took my hands off, stepped away, and actually redid everything, which I don't know if a lot of people have that kind of mental fortitude in a way to actually step away from the implement because it doesn't feel right, and like kind of refocus, re-get your whole mental aspect of it, and then wait until you feel a good positioning. I mean, and there's been times where I've rushed. I'm not saying it's perfect, but if you can at least try to be in a good mental state of where, all right, if it doesn't feel perfect, step away, start over, then go back at it and see how it goes. So,
yeah,
like Tiger Woods in the middle of a backswing, and you stop in the middle.
No, that's a good point, because I tend to, I don't know, it's like once I put my hand on it, it's like I'm married to it and I go for it whether I should or shouldn't. So that's
and I've done it too, and then I'm mad at myself because I know I can do it.
That's exactly what happens. Yep, you get all pissed off, and it was like, why did you even try? Nope. It's even worse if you get a tear out of the deal, you know?
Yep.
And it's not even always the grip that you're taking or the surface or something doesn't feel right. Like I've seen people take attempts on the pinch where someone might have taken like a 2.5 off and replaced it with a 5 for the next attempt, and it might have gotten positioned in a way where they actually have to put their foot there, and they'll actually change their stance because, oh, that plate's there, I'll just stand around it, or I'll avoid it with my foot. No, what you should do is like kick that thing out of the way. It shouldn't end up there in the first place. But you know, if someone like Dawson, who's never assisted with a competition before, doesn't realize how important that is. He doesn't have that experience. So that happened one time also, and I was like, you got to move that plate, or else you're going to step on it, or you're going to screw yourself up. So that's another thing. I think, dude, it's real easy. It's real easy in competition when you haven't done it before, or it's been a long time since you've done it, that you get like tunnel vision, and you're not taking into consideration everything that you need to. So there's always a learning opportunity in every competition. That's why it's important to do as many competitions as possible. The other thing that I would say is if people aren't doing it, to videotape yourself during the workout. And that doesn't mean you have to go sharing 50 different clips of every workout that you do. I'm not saying you got to film it and then put it up on Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff, but a lot of times if you can video a lot of lifts, you'll be able to see patterns in how you're doing things, and then you'll be able to see what is successful for you and what you need to do in order to continue being successful. Whereas if you've never seen yourself do anything, you don't know what you look like, and you can't compare one day to the next, one workout to the next. You can't compare yourself to other similarly designed people, you know, with similar leverages and things like that. So video is key. That's something that I took from baseball, playing baseball for years, just analyzing video of my hitting and my throwing, and I was able to see improvements there. So that's one of the reasons why I've always videotaped so much stuff, is because, and really like only 5-10% ends up getting shared. A lot of the other stuff just gets deleted because I just want to see what things look like.
Right. No, I need to make that more a part of my training. That's been a huge thing. So
I'll tell you the most recent thing, Alan, is I bet it took us between 10 and 20 attempts on Thursday to really get comfortable with the jug, the Fat Bastard jug for King Kong. We worked on that on Thursday. And
I saw some of those lifts, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to get everything set up when I take an attempt. I can feel it right away, like probably 90% of the time, that I'm going to have a successful lift if I have it set up right. Sometimes it just doesn't feel right, and it's almost a 0% success rate with a good lift if I try to lift through a poor setup on that. So I want to get it so that I know as soon as I put my hand on there that it's going to be the proper setup and it's going to come up. And that's how, it took me, I don't know how many years to get that way with the Euro, and I probably trained on that more than anyone else in the world, except for maybe like David Horn back in the mid-2000s, the late 2000s, before 2010. So something to think about there, repetition.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed just yesterday, because we did jug yesterday also, is my first attempt I couldn't ever, I generally might be able to break a weight, but if I immediately put it back down, re-gripped it, I would find a better position in my hand, and then I was actually able to lift it on my second attempt, even though there was a 5-second difference in time, the second lift was actually better than the first lift when it started getting like really heavy. Now, if I don't know, it was a little bit of moisture in my hands or taking the excess chalk off. I mean, it could have been a little bit of that too.
Did you get one of the jugs, Alan?
I do. Yeah, I have everything for King Kong. That's one thing though. I mentioned this to you in a Facebook Messenger though, but that's one of those ones I haven't been able to play with that yet because I can't really lift much even with my left arm right now because it has a significant activation effect on the right side of my body.
Yeah.
The things that I can't stretch that I would need to stretch. So I really haven't. I maybe put just literally 50 or 60 pounds on it just to use it once or twice, and that was it. I haven't done anything real with it yet. So. Well,
don't feel bad about that because that's pretty much all I was able to lift until a week, 10 days ago. So it's come along quickly just from the repetition and practice. Anything else? Go ahead, Alan.
Oh, it seems like a nice implement, though. I would think with the size of it and everything, some of the issues we'd seen with some of the other implements in the past wouldn't be a thing anymore as far as injuries go. So
I wouldn't be surprised if 300 pounds gets pulled, though. Not gonna lie.
Really nice. Okay, that's funny. You guys are the only ones I've seen actually pulling on that.
Which he's supposedly going to be competing. I wouldn't be surprised if 300 pounds is at least near 300 pounds is the number that wins that.
Wow.
But there's a little bit more play with the carabiner, so you're not locked in. Just like even Jedd feels better, which he had torn his bicep on the V-bar, so it feels better in his arm, in his hand, because there's a little bit of freedom. You're not locked into place like in a solid implement.
Sure. No, yeah, interesting. Well, it'll be the first time, so I guess we'll see what the numbers get up to. That'll be exciting. So, all right.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to add about up through the Euro event, Luke?
No, not. Yeah, we can get back on topic here.
Okay, cool. So, just to recap, so Luke finished at 2:08. That put him into first place, along with Rob McMurrin and Justin Major. So. That's what we're looking at now as far as the overall standings. And then event 3 was the Napalm's Nightmare with the 2 3/8 inch handles, which is how many centimeters or how many millimeters, Luke?
60 millimeters. So for the
60 millimeters.
So the non-Americans that can't transfer the distance over, it's 60 millimeter handle.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've seen some 2.5 written, so that's actually a mistake. So you just
that's why I made that little sarcasm.
Yeah.
Well, everything's in pounds too, so that must screw up a few people as well, huh? So hey, so what was this event like? Because this is this is kind of Jedd's brainchild, and then your creation in the end. This must have been real exciting.
So going
into pretty cool.
Yeah, I knew the Canadians were going to absolutely destroy us as the Team USA because they had 3 guys that were going to pull 400 or close to 400, and we had 0 people that were going to pull 400. So we pretty much knew that we didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these lifts. It looks like Eric Rusin absolutely destroyed that thing. Hell.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, he did 412 for the lead in the overall event, and then what was his next attempt, Luke? I don't have the papers right in front of me. Wasn't it
I think he went with 425. I think was the number that he wanted to go, kind of an even number there.
Put a jump on there.
Justin, who actually did he skip 412? Because I know he didn't even his entering number wasn't even until 400 pounds.
Right.
His opening attempt. But I want to say he skipped 412 and actually went up to 418 or something like that, or 425 with Eric. I don't know. But he had actually broke 450 off the ground in training, like a few inches. So he had done 435 full lift. So to me, that's just unreal as far as that strength is crazy.
Yeah, and I almost want to say that he missed his first attempt. He went up there and did what we were talking about earlier and missed one. That could have been the pinch. A lot of it's a blur for me. But
yeah, I wasn't really paying attention I was happy with my 348. I mean, it was pretty much right where I had expected. 350 was my number that I was my overall goal, so I couldn't really argue. And then I was going to the bathroom, wandering around. I don't know what I was doing, so I wasn't really paying 100% attention to the other guys lifting after me. So.
Yeah, and this is where I wanted to do everyone a favor and spell them. So I went up there and took a couple attempts, Alan, and I actually set PRs in my non-lifting gear. So I think I either did 403 or 412. I'm not sure which one I did.
I was actually there for that, and you did the 412.59 that Eric did.
All right, cool. And then I missed the next one that Eric did. So he missed it, and then I missed it, as I recall. So that felt pretty good to PR. But at the same time, I hadn't lifted anything up to that point except for like weights that were going to go onto the Euro. So I was not fatigued at all, and I don't know that I would have been able to pull 412 had I been competing. I also didn't do any grippers. I mean, did nothing of that. So I was totally fresh. But that was a pretty cool feeling because I don't know that I've been up above 400 pounds on the 2 3/8 handles at all. So that was cool.
Was this a new handle? A brand new handle?
Handles.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
I just freshly painted, brand new. The handle, I mean, the bar wasn't new. The bar was my version, but I painted brand new ones, so the texture was new for everybody.
Okay. Cool. All right.
So Eric ends up with 412 there, and then next behind him looks like Justin Major at 403. Yep. Tom Bryson got 392. And from there, it looks like it takes a pretty steep drop-off down to Luke and Rob McMurrin at 348.
Yeah. So, which Rob took his last attempt. He just made too big of a jump because he went from 350 to 370, thinking that versus making like a 10-pound jump, he made a 20-pound, which just proved to be a little bit too much.
Yeah. That, and like you said, Alan, earlier, sometimes on a lift, 5 pounds can feel like 100, and sometimes on the nightmare, a 20-pound jump can feel like 100. So
yeah, that's a significant step up in my opinion. So yeah, it's not like a bench press where you're throwing whole plates on. You know, it's you got to be a little more conservative. Yeah.
And we did allow people to stand on some sort of a platform. So some people use like rubber bumper plates or the regular iron 45-pound plates. And that proved to be very, very important because when, for instance, Chris Andrade, when he warmed up, he didn't stand on anything. And when we do warm-ups, you take the crossbar off. So no one really noticed how high he was pulling his warm-up lifts. And when he went to take his first attempt, he actually missed it. So and the reason he missed it was because he was incapable of like pulling it to the high enough mark because of how short he is. So then he stood on plates, and that wasn't high enough. And then he stood on the double plate, both a rubber and an iron plate, and then he was able to pull it high enough, but his grip ended up slipping. So he was following himself through this whole ordeal pretty much, and he ended up zeroing out in that lift. So that's one thing that you want to
up to it.
Yeah, you want to learn from that, in that you need to make sure that you're pulling high enough. If your height is questionable, if your just body height is questionable to be able to pull something high enough, you want to make sure that you get the blocks that you need, or the for instance, Chris's son Ace stood on actual wooden blocks. And we stood on blocks at the grip games in February, and everybody did. But we also didn't use a marker to hit a crossbar in February. We did that here at Nationals. So that's something that you want to be aware of as well. So lots of opportunities for learning. If everybody hasn't watched the videos that were streamed, they're not perfect. Like, it's hard to capture everything that you want to on a streaming video. And honestly, with my phone, it's a pain in the ass because I was using an old phone and it kept dying. So I had to keep it plugged in, and then we had to do this whole stupid thing with the tripod and stick it up there so I could charge it and stream at the same time. So some of the things got missed, but you can go back and you can follow along and see what's going on, and you can pick some of those things out and learn from other people's ordeals.
So it looks like Gus Bush, he pulled a solid number. Was he the oldest competitor?
Yeah, 69 years old or something like that, dude.
I knew he was getting up there, and I'd seen some quality axle pulls from him in the past. So
he's
him hit that.
That's
not
bar
surprising,
brute, man. He's really strong with the thick bar. He's a long-time arm wrestler. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize he was an arm wrestler. I didn't know that at all. Okay, I'll be darned. All right. Well, I guess that explains a few things.
Yeah,
right.
he got 338, which actually beat out Mike Rinderly, who was also in the Masters class. So he beat him by almost 10 pounds on the Nightmare.
Okay. Looks like Nigel Blackburn got 235. Was he pulling more than that in training?
I think he was pulling more than that in training. So he had to cut a couple pounds and to make a weight class. So he was doing like some air bike and stuff like that, and was dehydrated and things. So I think a lot of his numbers that he ended up putting up were not indicative of his actual strength level. Like he was expecting, and I was expecting him to break the world record for his weight class, the one that Jerome Bloom just set for the two-hand pinch. I was actually expecting him to break that, and he said it felt okay, but he just didn't have the strength there. So I think it was some of those other factors that got to him. Plus, it was his first ever contest. He was very jittery and didn't want to make too many big mistakes. So, but I think also he took kind of a large jump from his last success to the record, and that may have been something about it too. We were talking about that afterwards. Maybe a more conservative jump in between would have been a better idea instead of jumping right to the record from his previous successful attempt.
Sure. Well, he's a real strong guy. I've seen a lot of his stuff. He's pulling some monster numbers on everything. Oh.
Yeah, he's
cool.
doing real well.
Well, that looks like that is a success.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Luke.
I say in his write-up, he was worried that he was taking up too much time, like making sure what the weights were on the pinch and trying to get that. But again, I mean, if you're going for a bodyweight world record, who gives a crap how much time you're taking? That's my theory.
Yeah, I've only ever heard one.
You're allowed to take your time.
Yeah, I've only ever heard one complaint in all my years of grip that someone was taking too long. So that's a pretty small number as far as like the actual number of people who have done it. So in that case, no one's going to complain. And that's a good point. Luke and Nigel and a couple other dudes actually put up write-ups about the competition, and those are a good read for everyone as well. I actually stole a couple of them off the grip board and put them on my website. But so you can go there to dieselcrew.com and see those, or just go to gripboard.com and you can find those as well. I don't know if they're in the grip contest section or the subcategory, which is the trip reports and write-ups section, but they're worth a read.
It's in the subcategory. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where I was finding them.
Rindo put his in the NAGS thing. He's the one that put it in the wrong spot, so we can give him a hard time.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So what was everybody's impression of the Napalm's Nightmare in replacement of the axle?
I heard zero negative feedback about that, and in fact, that's one of the things that I asked for feedback on prior to the contest, because I didn't want to make that change without some kind of feedback prior from the people who were actually coming to nationals. So I made a post prior to that. I want to say back in February, I put up a post asking people to contact me regarding some events for nationals, and I asked them about both hands-on grippers going to one. I asked about the Napalm's Nightmare, and I also asked about a preference for the wrist event. So I got feedback on all those. I didn't hear any negative feedback as far as that event. Personally, I feel that it's a far superior event because you don't have to deal strictly, just because of the one factor of not having to call lockout on the axle versus the Napalm's Nightmare with the 6-inch pull path. I think that right there makes it an easier event to run. So, I guess feedback went pretty well. And I know that one or two people picked up a Napalm's Nightmare after the contest. So did you hear anything, Luke, as far as feedback during the contest?
No, not during the contest. I know that Arto is actually going to use the Napalm Nightmare versus the Country Crush in the Bone Hill contest. So there's even people in different countries utilizing it in their contest. So
yes, I just saw a competition where I don't know what the competition was, but it was one of the ones that had Patricia Luxner
and Serco Peterman. Or not.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
But I don't know what the actual competition was. Did either of you guys see what it was? I can't remember.
I literally just saw on Facebook like 5 minutes before we were getting on.
So did I. I saw Patricia put up a video of one of her attempts, and it looked pretty cool, so I shared it. So, but anyway, it's out there, and it seems to be pretty popular, Alan. But I'm always interested in hearing people's feedback, without a doubt.
Well, sure. The Griff Craft Challenge 2018, and then it's obviously in a different language, all the rest of the stuff. So,
sure. So, moving forward, do you think we're going to see the Napalm's Nightmare? Is that going to be the thick bar event at Nationals, or you think it's going to alternate, or where do you see that headed?
I'm not in a rush to run the Axle event. I know that. I mean, I don't know for a fact that I'll run Nationals next year, but I mean, I wouldn't want to run the Axle event just because it's a pain in the ass to judge. And you always have someone, there's people with the back injury history that don't want to do it, and that ends up being something that causes them not to, end up doing as well as they could do because they're tentative with the implement. So, sure. And I just don't like judging it. I mean, to me, you can't even judge it properly without 3 judges, and then you either have to find 2 other volunteers besides the guy that's actually organizing the contest, or you have to bother competitors and make them do the judging while they're trying to compete, and I don't like doing that either. So,
right.
We'll have to see. I like
sure.
the Nightmare because it's adjustable. You got all the different handle sizes that you can use. It's gotten, wonderful feedback across the board from, Ricardo loves it. He's talked about it lots of times. And I think the fact that it's just an up and down lift where you don't have to worry about the body strain and injuries and things like that, I think that's an appealing trait about it. Plus, you don't have to run the 2 3/8 handles. You could do the 2-inch. I believe that's what they used in the contest that we were talking about before, the Griff Craft competition. And there's even bigger implements. So plus, the training that you can do with it is much more varied than what you can do with just an axle. And it's cheaper too. So, not to go into a full-on promo about it, but I think there's a lot of benefits for that over the axle. And I honestly, I don't know how you could even injure yourself on it unless you hit it when you were cold. Like, as long as you were warmed up, I think it's a safe implement and you're not going to hurt yourself. And the leverage is different, so it's not so hard on your back. I think it's a winner myself, but
yeah, you're generally pulling from 18 inches.
Other people.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Luke. Go ahead.
I say you're generally pulling from roughly 18 inches or high. Ricardo and other people train from a deficit just to make it so that they're challenging the grip for a longer distance. But in the contest, we actually had to use a 22-inch long loading pin with the 2-inch handles because we were worried about using 500 pounds. If you have the thin like Ivanko's or Alico plates, then you don't need that longer loading pin. But we had to use it in then 6-inch blocks. So we ended up, I think it was a 15-inch high is where you were starting at the contest in February. So it's still higher than where you would with the axle. So there's a lot less back issues. And like Joe Sullivan, he's one that has had a few low back surgeries, fusion, and he doesn't have any problem pulling on the Napalm's Nightmare.
Sure.
Great point.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. No, I was just curious if that was going to be.
Yeah.
The replacement, if that was the plan moving forward in the future, or how that was going to be. So that's cool. Okay. Well, it's good that it's gotten positive feedback. I definitely like. Yeah. I like mine though. I literally used it like twice before I wasn't able to do anything anymore. But it was nice. The appealing thing to me versus like the crusher is mostly what I've done with thick bar training, And I could do both hands at the same time and knock it out. It was a huge time saver, and I like pulling from the advantage position too versus the axle. So it was a real win-win in my opinion.
Yeah. So I mean, something as far as like technique that I used, which I think there was a few other people that realized I was doing it. So my left hand is on thick bar is actually weaker. So I actually moved my left hand about a half inch further out towards the end of the handle, which creates a longer lever arm, therefore putting more force into my right hand to work harder. So anytime, I even do that on the axle. I shift over left to the left side an amount so that I can feel more of the weight into my right hand. And it makes a huge difference for me because if I stay centered, it's at least 10 to 15 pounds less on a thick bar handle, a two-handed lift.
That's interesting. I knew you did that on the axle. I don't know who it was that mentioned it. It might have even been Jedd, actually. I knew you did that on the axle. It never even dawned on me to try that on the Napalm's Nightmare. So that's a good tip.
Yeah. So if
Dude,
one hand that's weaker,
Luke's hooking people up with some golden nuggets today, brother.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I shouldn't give away all these little secrets. No.
Well, all right. So the last event, that was the wrist roller?
No, the fourth event was wrist roller, and then the fourth event was medley, and then wrist roller was the last event.
Oh, okay. All right. So you got to tell me about this medley. I always loved the thought of the medleys. So I got a chance to watch your video. It looked like you blew right through it. So
I had actually not even trained for the medley. Obviously I've done all these lifts. There's nothing new, technique, positioning, all that stuff is nothing new for me. And I saw the list of things that was on it. So mentally I had an idea of what was possible, what wasn't possible. Obviously I wasn't going to lift the inch dumbbell. I wasn't going to lift 190 pounds on the crusher. I knew I couldn't lift the 60-pound inverted dumbbell. The rest of the stuff I felt pretty good that I would have a chance at. So mentally, at this point they calculated the whole ordeal. I was actually in third place. I was behind, I think Justin was leading, then Eric, and then I was in third. So
yeah,
I was more towards the end of the list. So I had a lot of time to kind of think about the order that I wanted to go in based on fatigue levels. Also, I was chalking things throughout the whole contest for other people, chalking the heavier stuff so that it would be chalked for me later, just trying to help. So, what were you saying, Jedd?
No, I was going to say the way that it panned out at that point after the third event. Hold on, let me grab it. I'm on the wrong column. So going into that event, yes, Justin had 27.93 points, and then it was very, very close as always. Every contest that we're at anymore, there's like no breathing room. So 27.93 for Justin Major, 27.69, 69, bro, for Eric Rusin, and then Luke had 26.6. So between first and first and third place, there was only a separation of 1.33 points. So extremely close.
Right. Nice. Okay.
And the way it worked out, just in case anyone hasn't seen it, it was a 90-second time limit to get points in 12 challenges. So I don't have it right in front of me, but there was Rolling Thunder pull-ups. If you did 4 Rolling Thunder pull-ups, you would get 5 points. 3 pull-ups was 4 points. 3 pull-ups was 2 points, and 2 pull-ups was 1 point. So it was graduated in that way. The idea was to allow for women to compete and have something there for their strength levels. So there was a variety of feats a variety of options for each individual feat. So we had inch pinch, we had crusher, we had inverted dumbbell lift, we had thick bar challenge dumbbell lift, plate pinches, like loose plate pinch was 5 tens was 5 points, 4 tens was 4 points, 3 tens was 3 points, 2 tens was 2 points, and et cetera for all the different challenges. So there were several things that you had to consider in there. What am I good at? So Luke knows already that he's never lifted that 60-pound dumbbell. So it doesn't make any sense for him to even really try it in the contest. So he would start with the 50. And then the inch pinch, some things I tried to make, you had to earn all the points. Some things were, well within everybody's reach to get all 5 points. So it was a good mix, and all that information is on the thread in the grip board, in the post for the contest on the grip board. So if you want to see exactly what was in there and try to play some mental games with yourself, try to see what your strategy might be, you can go in there and check that out. This year, like I said, there were 4 options for each feat. I think last year there were 3 options for each feat, and prior to that, for the medleys, I think at least 1 or 2 years there were 2 options.
2 options, yeah,
for each feat. So there was a light and a heavy, and that was it. So, and then the way that it works, if you got, let's say you did something and you got 3 points, you could go back and try for like 4 points, but if you got the 4 points, you would only get 4 points. You wouldn't get 7. Does that make sense, Alan?
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So, that's how the medley worked, and 90-second time limit, so it was a little bit longer than the last few years in nationals, but you still had to use your time wisely. And I think one thing that a lot of people did that ate up a lot of their time was they did the Rolling Thunder pull-ups first. So, it takes time to do 4 pull-ups. You're looking at like 10, 12 seconds, so now you're down to only like 75, 78 seconds left in order to do all the other feats, plus now you're working under pre-exhaustion for both hands. So, most people are better at a certain challenge with one hand versus the other one. So I know that in any medley, I can probably do like 75% of the challenges better right-handed than left. But there's 25% that I want to do left because my left hand might be better, or I just want to save some strength for my right hand. So all that stuff has to be weighed and measured as you're going into a medley.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of where, when I was watching people going through, I was mentally just kind of, all right, what's my order? Based on fatigue levels after these few lifts, do I think I'll be able to go to that? So I had a pretty good plan going in that I was actually going to start on the crusher because the Rolling Thunder pull-ups, I could probably do 15 of them without even struggling. So even if I'm tired, I can still do that. So I was going to keep those kind of towards the end, and I didn't want to pre-exhaust myself to try to then go try to lift a blob or a crusher or something else that's really heavy. So I actually started with the crusher, more because it was close to the Fat Man blob. The Fat Man blob was probably the thing that I really wanted to get at the beginning because there's no way I could do that fatigued. The 155 crusher, a little fatigue, I could probably still lift it. The blob, that's getting close to the top end of lifting, especially at the end of a day. So started with the crusher, went to the Fat Man blob, was able to lift both of those, and then I actually went back the other direction away from the pull-ups. Did the 2 sledgehammer is the one event that I generally do better left-handed. They're pretty much the only event that left-handed is better than right. So I did the sledge choke to the 18-inch platform, left-handed, got it. Face lever with a 16, got it. And then went right to the anvil, the thick bar dumbbell, which I ended up doing the 140 death grip bell, and then the 510s, the hub, the 45 hub. I couldn't do the 45 plus 10. It felt really hard that day. I don't know. Nobody ended up doing, I think, the 45 plus 10, so I didn't feel too bad about that. And then I got to the 245 pinch. This is where I wasn't sure, depending on, because of fatigue level, if I was actually going to be able to get it. But I was like, well, it's only 1 point. I know I can do the 35s with either hand, even if I am tired. So I was actually able to get the 45s first try, and then went right to inch pinch, and then the inverted dumbbell, which the 50-pounder is at my top end. Like, on a good day I can lift it, not 10 items into a medley. There's no way. So I tried it a few times. Then I went right to the 35, lifted it, and went right to the pull-ups. came back to the dumbbell because I had about 20 seconds left, but was still not able to lift it off the ground. So I was very pleased. It was basically I left 1 point on the table that I thought was a maybe. So 55 out of 60, I was very happy with where I was at, and overall just pleased with the event. So
yeah, no, that's a nice performance. What was the starting order on that? Did you go? Did they reverse it from overall placement going into it?
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Okay, kind of the classical form on that then.
So,
okay.
And then Eric and Justin were still to go. So I knew Eric would do well because he does have experience with medleys, and he kind of understands that process of fatigue, stuff like that. So I think he ended up doing 49 or right around 50. I think Rob was in second with 51. Yeah, Eric did 49. So I expected him to come somewhere around low 50s, right around 50, 51, 52. So Justin was the one that I was worried about because as far as lifting things, like fresh, he can lift the inch dumbbell. He can lift everything that's there. Like he broke the 60-pound dumbbell off the ground before anybody even walked into the room. So I was like, oh, geez, he's going to go through and destroy this event. But I think a little bit of inexperience is what kind of got him more than anything. Is he would try the really heavy things, and which he did a lot of the heavier things initially, and I think it fatigued him a little bit. And then he just spent a little bit too much time trying to do these heavier things versus take one attempt at the heavy thing, can't get it, go right to the lighter thing, just get the points, because 4 points is better than having to keep dropping down and maybe not getting through everything. So I think a little bit of inexperience on his side kind of is what hurt him, not necessarily. It's not a strength issue, obviously. We all know that. But I think he ended up with, what did he end up with? 42. So, yeah. So, and that was more just utilizing time correctly more than anything else.
Sure. Now he's an arm wrestler too, isn't he?
Yes, a very, very strong one.
Okay. All right. I don't know anything about him from the arm wrestling side of things, but I'd seen his stuff up at Eric's place with grip, and he pulled some monstrous numbers on like the wrist wrench and things like that. So I knew he was a beast, but that was about it. So, okay.
Oh yeah, I mean his lifts in each event is unreal for being in it only a few months, and with little technique or practice on things.
And how old is he, Luke? Oh, he's early 20s,
He's 21. Right? 21.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, so
that's terrible.
Everybody is going to have to watch out for him in the future if he continues to participate in grip. That's all I got to say.
And I was, as I mentioned, episode 54 was with Eric, and he kind of gave a scouting report of everybody from Canada. And he said that, I think it was in that show, or maybe it might have been just a personal conversation that Eric and I had, but he was like, I think he's going to surprise you. I think he's going to impress you, he said. He's going to impress you on the medley. So by the sounds, he was just off during the medley and made a few tactical errors like Luke alluded to. But he's definitely got a strong future in grip. Luke had 55 points. Luke had 55 points at the end of it, and then Rob McMurrin had 51. Dan Fleming had 50. As I recall, I think Dan might have been the first guy to break into the 50-point mark in the medley. Yeah. So that was cool. I mean, dude, I got nothing on film, Alan. I usually film the whole entire contest, and I just couldn't get it done this time. I wish I would have gotten the medley of Dan Fleming and Rob both, because they did really well. There wasn't a lot of misses, and if they did miss, they kind of gathered themselves up quickly and got right back onto it. Like, whenever I'm at a contest, I'll always tape, like, Cody's medley, if he's there, Andrew Derniat's medley. I like watching medleys, so I like to have those captured. I do wish that I would have at least filmed or had someone film Dan's and Rob's medleys, because they went pretty well. After that, Eric had 49 points, so he just missed getting into the 50-point club for that medley. and then there's, a pretty decent drop down after that. So
sure.
So that's what we're looking at there after the fourth event, the medley. And then anything else before we go into the final or the score at this point and into the fifth event, Luke? Anything to highlight?
I knew I had a chance to be either first or second at that point. I didn't know if I had enough to pass Eric overall for which it actually ended up being we were exactly tied.
Dead tie, Alan, going into the last event. 36.6 points.
That's awesome, and in the same weight class, so that is beautiful. Well,
that's right.
Well.
That's right. 93 kilo weight class, man.
Epic showdown.
Kilos.
Yep, Canada, USA.
These guys, yep, exactly, dude. And so I missed the grip board conversation about the team competition, and someone was like, "Hey, did you see this? You see the stuff about the team competition and all that?" And up until that point, it was going to be like 3 or 4 man teams or something like that. So everything totally got changed to USA versus Canada, and I didn't see any of it. But I went back and read some of it. It was pretty cool. So. It added a very interesting piece to the contest, for sure.
And after the medley, there's no way we could win. So at that point, the team event was out the window. Pretty much after thick bar, it was out the window.
2 events ago, and they've locked it up. Unless people don't, maybe if people didn't actually show up for the medley or they started their trip home early, due to concerns with customs or something, maybe we would have had a chance. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they did it like a reverse strongman. So if you took first, and then ties would get even points. So I think what would make it actually more interesting is if we did the team-based stuff as a percentage-based. Because obviously Chedd's absolutely kicking everybody's butt in the gripper event. He gets 1 point out of it because he won, but really it doesn't show how good he actually was compared to the rest of us, or how good they were on Napalm's Nightmare versus the rest of us. So I think that would make it a lot more interesting, especially when you have to utilize. I think we had to utilize 8 people, and like I said, you could only be used 3 times. So I finished second in grippers, but I wasn't even being utilized in grippers, so it didn't help us. So that actually hurts us overall in the event. So the team thing is definitely interesting. I think there's ways we can improve it, make it a little bit more interesting, but it's just a good side thing that is awesome. I mean, with NAGS transitioning now to an international route, there may be a route to go team-based overall with Finland, with Great Britain, with Canada, with U.S. I mean, that would be absolutely awesome. You take your 4 best guys, percentage-based scoring in whatever events.
Yeah, no, that's kind of like what Clay Edgen was mentioning in a previous call with like matching jumpsuits and having like the dream team show up. Yeah, that is a neat little twist on the competition as a whole. Kind of a side bet sort of thing. So,
I would feel pretty good with the U.S. Especially with Cody, Jedd. I mean, you got Gil. I mean, I don't know if you have people, even the route of like Rich Williams as far as like thick bar, that you could potentially have people. You take 5 people with you, and your top 3 in each event are scored in each event, and however you want them to do that. But I think that would be cool. That would add another side of, at least you have national pride with event, but also individual pride stuff too.
Right. Cool. Well, I tell you, I'd love to see the Napalm's Nightmare in Rich's hands. See what kind of weight really go up on that thing.
Oh,
we
yeah.
Might need we definitely going to need a longer loading pin.
Yep. Cool. All right. So then on to the wrist roller, huh?
Yeah, the wrist roller was a 2-inch wrist roller. It was hung on a pin inside of a squat cage, and it's actually the old squat cage that I used to use, and I sold it to a guy, so I had to get it back from him. So that was pretty cool to check that out again, because I haven't seen that thing in, dude, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I would say. So I actually forgot some of the features about it. First off, it was much lighter than I remember it being. There wasn't as much to it as I thought, so we had to weigh it down with plates. I also forgot up until when we pulled it out of the storage that my dad had put like 4x4 blocks on the bottom of the cage because it was so narrow. I wasn't able to do like a powerlifting style squat, so we had to take those off as well. So it was kind of cool seeing that. But it was all on the cage. It was connected with a line going to a sled that was weighed with 115 pounds, and the sled weighed something like 15 pounds or something like that. So it was a 34-foot pole length on turf. So we wanted to set it up so that we didn't want everybody to complete it. We didn't want it to come down to, there's going to be 5 people that finish it in 50 seconds and then a couple of people in 52 seconds. We didn't want that. We wanted it to be hard enough so that not all people could finish. And we ended up picking a great weight. It worked out great. I don't know what the success rate was, but it was was it like
7
40%?
people finished it. Yeah.
Sorry?
7 people ended up finishing it. Was there 17 to?
Yeah, so right around there. So it ended up being really good. It was very intense. It was one of those things where everybody was cheering each other on, and it was loud as hell, man. If it had been like a wooden floor that we were on, I think the acoustics would have blown out people's eardrums. Luckily, we were on the turf, and it was a little bit more safe, and no OSHA inspectors had to come in and give any citations. So the decibel level wasn't super high. That's some OSHA humor for you, Alan, seeing how you have an idea what the hell I'm talking about. Other people might not, but yeah, so it was intense, and like we said, not a lot of people finished it, and every single person that did it, it was like they weren't going to do much more that day. That's why it's the last thing that you do in the competition. And It was a smaller device. It was like the 2-inch, around 2 inches, 1.9. And the first time that we did wrist roller at nationals was way back in, I want to say 2010, and we used like a 4-inch pipe. So it just happened to be the only pipe, the only wrist roller that I had. And looking back, it probably wasn't really that fair for people with smaller hands. But that's where it started. After that, it's been used in like 5 or 6 different end of the year championships. So end of the grip year championships, whether it's been here at my house or at Chris Rice's place in 2011 or Andrew Derniat's place in a few different years. There's been several different forms of it, but it's always you're pretty much done once the wrist roller has hit you, because your hands are just destroyed. You really have to go for it all, and it's a very mentally challenging event. But it's really sweet, and a lot of people had good things to say about it, and I think it's a great way to end a contest myself.
And it doesn't
that
take
would
forever.
Yeah, it's quite the finale stick there. Yeah, you'd think you'd get like stretch marks on your forearms after the fact from having cranked on it like that for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Was that a branded wrist roller or just a homemade one, something Luke made, or how was that?
I made it. Yeah, I made it.
Oh,
it was
okay.
Basically like the FBBC wrist roller, but what I had done, I had taken 2-inch inside diameter washers and welded it so that the strap would stay within like a 6-inch spot, so that there's no way it would like bind up on itself or anything like that. So it was basically just a FBBC one that I welded 1-inch washers on each end and then took bigger washers and made it so that there was an area for rope and then a separate area for your hands.
Okay, cool. All right, and just raw steel? Not finished or anything?
I painted it with the texture paint that I use for like the Napalm Nightmare handles, just to give it a little bit of texture.
Some good grip then.
Plus,
yeah.
That actually holds chalk a little bit better than raw steel, so I figured that would be a good way, because 60 seconds you're not going to have time to chalk. You should hope at least you have a little bit of texture there, so that you're not just losing completely due to sweat or whatever.
Right. Nice. Okay. So how did that feel then, that event?
Good. So Jedd and I mean, we actually tried to, like, we tested it. We tested the distance. We tested, I think we each took 2 attempts one random day, like a month ago, like just to try to figure out what weight would be a good weight and that's what I said. 40 to 50% is kind of where you want to fall in as far as who finishes it. So that it's going to be challenging for some. Other people, it's just going to be, they're going to get through it, but they won't have much time left. So, I mean, I can't say there was even a lot of practice on it. I just feel like that's just naturally something that I'm good at as wrist roller. I mean, it was at Nationals at Derniats. I won that event. But that was a fishing pole style, which is a little bit different. So if you were to just let go of it, it would actually fall back down. So a totally different type of wrist roller, but still a wrist roller in general. So whereas this one, you could let go and take a break if you really wanted to. But
sure, cool. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Nick Carnigan, or however you pronounce his name, from Canada, he was the first person to actually finish the event, which I think he was like 7th or 8th to go. So the first 6 or 7 people didn't actually finish the event, and then Nick went and was able to finish it in 57 seconds. And then shortly after, Rob McMurray and Andrew Dube were able to finish it same time, 56, 57. Dan Fleming again right there, 56 seconds. And then I think Ches was in 4th or 5th overall. He ended up doing it in 49. So he actually put a really good number in that I was actually pretty happy that I was like, wow. And then he like fell over into the wall after he did it because he was like exhausted.
Yeah. You don't want to be in Chez's way when he's fallen into a wall either, Alan.
No.
Let me tell you. He'll take your knee out. He's a big boy.
Imagine. Yep. Yes, he is.
And then, so for me, obviously it was Justin was 3rd to last, then Eric, then myself. Eric's volunteered to go first because we were tied. I was like, okay, so all the pressure's on me. Nope, no big deal. As I'm freaking out mentally. So Justin actually, so when we tested the weight, I think the first time I did it, I'd done it in 48 seconds. And then the second time I did it in 42, the 2 times that I had done it. So I was like, all right, and I felt pretty good about the 42, that was going to be a pretty decent number to put in. And Justin absolutely just blew it out of the water and did it in 39 seconds. So I'm like freaking out mentally because now I was like, if I don't do well, I'm going to lose this. It's all on me at this point. So, but I had to wait and see what Eric was actually going to do. But he actually ended up coming in about a foot short. Like the front of the sled was at the line, but you had to actually get the whole sled across. So at this point I was like, I got to come in near 42 seconds in order to beat Justin. So I actually had to step away and walk back because I was like, my heart was racing so fast because of like I was so anxious that I couldn't even calm myself down mentally. And it was actually kind of hard for me to just kind of get my energy levels back down to normal so I could actually take a couple deep breaths. So what I'd done, I was like, all right, I'm just going to set a timer on my phone for 1:15, and as soon as it says 1 minute, I'm just going to start. And so that's what I did. And the whole time while I was rolling, the only thing I was looking at was the rope going back and forth on the winding. And the first time I looked up, it was about 5 or 6 feet away from the line, and I just went back to the rope, just kept cranking as fast as I could. And what I had heard about that point was Adam Culver was actually running the clock. I had thought he said 30 seconds left. So I was like, shit, I better get going because I got to get under 40s. But what he had actually said was 40 seconds. So once I had finally passed the line, I looked down at my clock and it said 25 seconds left. So that means I'd finished it in 35 seconds, and I was absolutely just ecstatic at that point because I knew I had won. And then I almost passed out halfway walking back down the turf because I was like I like yelled after I finished it, and it was like that delayed pass out, brown out feeling.
Awesome. I actually haven't experienced that feeling. I know I saw one of Jedd's old videos with the brown out thing. I know that's been a phenomenon with some other people too. So yeah, you really got to be cranking. Oh, well, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. That's all I was focusing on. I was like, don't even look at the sled, because like when you're turning it, it almost feels like you're barely even moving the sled. Like the sled is like going so ridiculously slow. So I feel like mentally, if you watch the sled, it actually makes it feel worse than it is. So I didn't even look at it.
Sure.
That's a good point right there, too.
So, I mean, each turn you're only going 6-8 inches per hand, so you're taking a lot of turns to move at 34 feet.
Huh.
I've never done a wrist roller like that, Alan.
No, I've definitely played with a wrist roller, but I've never pulled a sled or anything with one.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
But to me, that sounds like a lot of weight. Going back to like Josh Hensey's challenge with a wrist roller. I never got to do any of that. The timing of it just didn't work out for me. But that sounds like a lot of weight. So I would, I would think I would have fallen into the did not finish category on that one. 130 pounds, that distance. That seems pretty hefty. So.
Well, and you've got to be able to get quick strokes and longer ones. And I think longer is actually more important than the quick ones, which I think any woman will tell you that. So if you can get an 8-inch stroke on the wrist roller versus just a 5-inch stroke, I think you're always going to have a better placing at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just watching everybody's technique, some people were standing upright and just using basically their lower arm to do it, just the wrist. I'm in like a split squat position, trying to get every single muscle that I can utilize throughout the event. And like actually the most tired muscle on my body after that was actually my tricep, which is kind of weird considering you wouldn't expect your tricep to be sore in a wrist roller. But that underhand pushing to finish that motion each time was really what was fatigued more than anything on me.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Were people allowed to go the other way with the wrist roller if they wanted?
I mean, was it just I think it would be impossible, honestly.
Well, yeah, I always had the best luck with the way you guys were doing it. I just didn't know if anybody had a preference.
Dude, I think it would be absolute murder if you tried to do the flexing action for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bloat that you'd feel in your forearms would be just terrible. I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
because I feel
for me,
when you're doing the extension, you're basically, I mean, you're using the support grip hand position, but you're actually using your upper arm to actually do more of the rolling motion. So you're holding with your handle to hold it still, to actually hold it, but then you're using whether it be more of your lat to pull back and push down. Whereas the other way, I feel like you'd be using all forearm flexors, and then you would be absolutely exhausted.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if
I
might have to try that sometime just to see if we can finish it.
Yeah, we could.
So it'll make for a good forearm Friday picture. So.
There you go.
I might actually look like I have flexor muscles in my forearm if I did it that way, because right now it looks like there's nothing there. It looks like a void, a cavernous void on my arm. So with Luke's finish of with Luke's finish, he got the 100 points. So that puts him at 46.6 after the 5 events. Second place, Justin Major with 45.24. Eric Rusane with 44.4. And then after that, it looks like Ches came in 4th place with 42. So that's what the top 4 looked like. And then in 5th place, I guess it was Dan Fleming maybe. Hard to tell. I don't have it ordered. But really, really close. The standings at the end were just how you would want to see them. You don't want to see blowouts at Nationals. You want to see good quality competition, good numbers. So that's exactly what we got. And once again, congratulations on the win, Luke.
Thank you. Very stoked.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. So Luke won a weight class national championship in 2014, and then I don't think you've had one since, right, Luke?
No.
Okay.
And this is my first overall contest win.
That's awesome,
which
man.
helps with you not participating.
Well, hey. Dude,
I'm not afraid to admit
any
reality
win I've ever
life
gotten,
here.
there's always been people that weren't there. So, I mean, it's not like, that's if anyone ever says that, that, oh, well, this person wasn't there, that person wasn't there, it's like, hey, they knew the contest was there, so they could have. So you can't ever think about that. So it's a win is a win. We did end up getting 3 questions for Luke. So unless you've got anything, Alan, that you wanted to fire at Luke for one more round, I'll go on to these questions. What do you say?
No, yeah, go ahead. I had a question that was more generalized towards you in the end here, Jedd. So
okay. So the first one that I'll pick here is from Lane Snook, and Luke, he wants to know why is there milk in coconuts?
Why is there milk in coconuts? My only answer is because they're similar shape to a female breast. I don't know. That's my best answer.
All right. That's great. That's fantastic. I guess
this wasn't a riddle?
I wasn't very specific. I didn't put – if you have any questions regarding grip or grip sport or the competition for Luke, let him know. It was just any questions. So that's what
I thought he was going to have an answer for that. Lane Snook, I mean. I thought this was like one of those
that
why
was
did the chicken
not
cross
a
the road
question
kind
that
of
I
thing.
was expecting.
Yeah. Let's go to Nigel Blackburn, who we said was also there for Nationals. It was his first competition, and he qualified using the online video submissions. He says, which movement, this is for Luke, which movement or movements do you credit the most for your insanely strong wrists? And now this one could actually have an equally funny answer if you went that direction, Luke.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it from going there.
Okay.
Having a mean wife / girlfriend. No. I think there's a little bit of natural strength there because even before I started grip, I was just doing basic like powerlifting movements, bench, squat, deadlift. I think I had just a little bit of natural wrist strength, which is probably more from baseball, especially right-handed. As far as training it, obviously since I started doing arm wrestling, that has definitely helped as far as wrist strength. But also just understanding, because some of it, like with the sled stroke for one, is just figuring out technique, position, hand position. Some of that comes into play just as much as strength does. And like doing a sledge lever, a face lever, like I can generally do a 16-pound if I'm just like training, but like to do a 20-pound, like not really amped up in a medley or whatever, it's very hard for me. But in a medley, 20-pound, let me go ahead and do it. So I think there's a little bit of adrenaline as far as like in contests that do help with some of those movements. And it's weird that those movements I'm better left-handed. I don't know if it's better pain tolerance left with my left hand or my mobility is just a little bit different left-handed than it is right-handed. But I can definitely say it's not thick bar because that is not what my strength is. So just doing plate curls, every way you can strengthen the wrist is going to be a way that's going to help, especially for pinch. That's another thing with pinch that people don't do is engage your wrists like you're like hiking a football. So.
Wow, that's a great way of putting that.
Yep. Great answer there. The other one is from Jamin Hayden, and he says, what area in your grip training did you have to improve on the most to bring yourself up to a championship level? Was it wrist strength, thick bar, or your pinch grip? And I don't know if this is going to come up or not, but Luke honestly did not do a lot of specific preparation for the NAGS championship. I think we trained the Euro twice, grippers 2 or 3 times. I think Napalm's Nightmare was probably what we did the most out of the events. We did no medley work. I think we might have done a grip rush one time, and that was way back when we still had the Silarukov blob on loan. and wrist roller we just did twice twice. And I guess if you count the April rolls, maybe 3 times. But we didn't do a lot of specific training. But what area did you see as something you had to bring up the most in order to get to this championship level, Luke?
So the biggest thing with, other than the small little injury on my finger and obviously the little tear on my thumb, being healthy. Like, I didn't have any other, like, aches, pains that were bothering me, and I think that helps going into a contest, that you feel good physically, so that you're not hesitant about anything. I've been doing grip enough. A little skin tear, that's not going to slow me down at all. It'll be what it is. But as far as, obviously, thick bar is still the thing that I still have to continue to try to bring up to be anywhere near the elite level guys like Eric, Gil, Cody. Those guys, thick bar absolutely just kick my rear end. But as far as like bringing up everything, everything is important. Obviously, the Medley tests everything. The Medley tests thick bar, tests wide pinch, narrow pinch, key pinch. So training everything, getting used to everything, getting your hands on equipment, everything that you can get your hands on, just to understand slight different positioning techniques. I think that's more than anything is understanding the pieces of equipment that you're using. What I've probably trained the most is actually pinch. Trying to get my Euro up forever is probably what I've done more than anything else. Grippers, I actually went a 6 or 8 month period where I didn't even touch a gripper except for doing like number 2, just do like sets of 10, maybe once every 2 weeks. But it was also giving me a lot of shoulder problems, and it wasn't being unhealthy in that side didn't actually help with my grip, so I just went away from them completely.
Grippers were bothering your shoulder?
Setting a gripper.
Ah, I see.
Absolutely kills my left shoulder. It, at the time, was like giving me severe shoulder pain in my left shoulder. So closing it with my right hand wasn't bad. I just couldn't set it with my left arm, which obviously when you're going with a heavy gripper, you kind of got to be able to set it. And then I also had a lateral wrist, medial wrist injury on my left wrist from arm wrestling. So then trying to set a gripper there also bothered it. So, and that was also the other part, is I was worried about setting the gripper for a right-handed close. So I actually did take one attempt on the grippers at left-handed, but the strength is nowhere near the same as far as crush strength. But as far as like people that are trying to get into it, everything. You have people that focus on it, like Chaz focuses primarily on grip. He has specific goals. He's working up towards the MM ladder, so that's obviously a little bit different. But if you're just trying to bring up your overall game, get your hands on as many pieces of equipment and get used to them, different thicknesses, different sizes, just to get your understanding of, one, where you're at so that you can take proper attempts during a contest, but also just understand the technique for them.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Just refreshed it. There's no other questions there. So, Alan, you said you had a question, so why don't you go ahead and shoot?
Yeah, so would you have competed if you'd known about that WWE belt beforehand?
No. Once I said I wasn't going to compete, there was no way I was going to compete. I've had so much stuff going on the side, peripheral to grip in the last, really since November of last year, that I wasn't going to compete after grip games this year until not Yoketober, King Kong of Grip. But once the Philly competition got announced for the arm lifting, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But no, I really didn't have any strong intentions at all of competing for quite some time at Nationals. Just kind of needed the break. And the thing about Nationals every year is the prep time is also right when my daughter's playing softball. So as a consequence, I always assist with her team. So a lot of my workouts either get abbreviated so that I can get to the game in time, or there's like a time change. So I might have to shove everything into a morning slot, or I might have to start at like 2 and get done at a certain time so I can be to the field on time. So it's never optimal anyway. So I didn't want to, and that always causes me a lot of internal strife, because I like to be able to prepare how I want to and put all the time in that I need to. and I just know that it wasn't going to happen. So I kind of like just dropped that from a very, very early point. So the answer is no. And what Alan's talking about there is the gym owner, Brad Martin, who I failed to mention in this call. Brad's like a longtime friend and training partner for me. We've been training together every so often. It used to be very, very consistent training together since like 2004, 2005. And, in the last 5 years, not too often at all. But a lifelong friend he will be, and he let us use the gym. He didn't even show up that day because he ended up getting sick, wasn't feeling well, so he didn't come over. But he ended up getting his hands on what's called the Winged Eagle WWF Championship belt. So that's the belt that Hulk Hogan wore through the majority of his title run in the 80s. And it's a really highly coveted belt among belt collectors. So most people that collect belts are from like the same time area as far as their fandom. So a lot of people own that belt. I had never seen Brad's belt before, so I didn't know what belt it was, but a couple weeks before the competition, he said that he wanted to donate that as a prize to the overall winner, which I thought was totally awesome. And I've always wanted to have a championship belt designed for nationals way back when I was running it even back when we were just doing Global Grip Challenge back in the mid-2000s. I always wanted to have a belt. And I never ended up getting it because they're actually quite expensive. Like, you can get them for like $100, but they don't look as good as the belt that Brad donated. So I didn't know what it was. I knew it was a WWF belt, and it had the WWE logo on it. So, and it was from like the Attitude Era. So I know I'm talking about stuff that a lot of people have no idea what I'm even saying, but I had no idea. There was no indication what belt that was by the cover that was on the outside, because it had the emblem from a different era, from when Hulk Hogan wasn't even in the WWF or WWE at that time. So I didn't know what the belt was. And then I took it out and checked it out the day before the contest, and I was like, holy crap, this is the Winged Eagle belt. And I wrote Brad, I was like, dude, this is the Winged Eagle belt. Are you sure you want to donate this? And he said, it's yours, dude. So it went onto the prize table, and I was like, holy cow, I would love to have that belt. But Luke Googled it. What was the price on that belt for the sales price, Luke?
So the cheapest one I could find was actually from the WWE store, was $400.
$400 for that belt, Alan. That's
quite
cool,
the price. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
So now every time Luke goes to your place to train, he's got to walk in wearing that.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't think he takes it off. I walked into his house the other day. He was having scrambled egg breakfast, and he had the belt on. So I think he welds on in it. I don't think it's come off yet.
That's awesome.
He trained in it yesterday for 4 hours.
I wear it underneath my clothes just so I don't get anybody trying to mug me.
Yeah. You walk around Towanda and Wyalusing with a championship belt on, and you're going to get branded a dork. I mean, no one's going to say that to your face.
Well, as soon as they do that, I'll have to hit them with
Raymond,
the atomic leg drop.
Yeah. You can drop that on just about anybody. It doesn't matter how big or small.
If I'm gonna wear the belt, I might as well live the character.
That's right. It's called living the gimmick,
on
dude.
People. That's right.
Like Mr. T back in the day. Every time he was walking around, he always had a weightlifting belt on. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
tight.
for sure. But yeah, that was
awesome.
That was real cool. Any other memories from the contest that we can share, Luke?
Not that I'm thinking offhand right now.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think this was a great show. Luke, thanks for joining us. I thought it went real well. It's a long one. It's almost 2 hours, but that's okay. When you're talking about stuff that you love, that's what happens. So make sure to like the video, everybody. Let's let's give Luke some likes on this one. And if there's any follow-up questions that you'd like to ask Luke, you can do it right here on YouTube in the comments section, and we can fire them at him some other time. Anything else from you, Alan?
Just a question.
Yo, what's up?
Jedd goes, how does he stay so light? Hummingbird bones, question mark.
Who said that, Chez?
Chez, yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of us are built like a middle linebacker like Chez is.
Yeah. And, in fact, well, part of the reason that Luke can stay so light is because he actually doesn't have forearms, Alan. He has what we've called 3 arms. So his forearms are about 6 inches shorter than anybody else's forearms you'll see. Even like some prepubescent kids have longer forearms than Luke does.
That's why the 3 arms and not the 5 arms thing. I thought that was like a typo or something like that.
No.
I never understood that. Okay. Interesting.
No, I don't make typos.
No, this is new information. I never knew that. I saw that from it was like years ago. I think I started seeing that 3 arms thing come out there. That was you guys kind of kept that.
Literally from elbow, like if you're putting my elbow on a table to like wrist crease, Jedd's arm is literally 3 inches longer than mine. Not even exaggerating. Like it's not even close.
That's crazy. Huh. Wow. I never gave that particular dimension any consideration at all through the years. I was always worried more or less about hand size, I guess.
Good thing there's no events that involve reaching overhead. Let's just say that.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, I guess all I had was just congratulations once again. That's quite an accomplishment, and enjoy that belt. That looked real sharp. So
to officially. Yeah. That is going to travel each year with the winner, correct? Or is it staying?
That's what I would think. I mean, I think that's something to be, as a new tradition, that could be something that goes on for a long, long time. So if I don't know if they say if a champion just drops the belt or doesn't defend the belt, then the next champion becomes a paper champion. So I don't know if we have to start throwing those terminologies around, but
heck yeah.
I think that's the way to go myself.
Yeah, that actually that's cool. Yeah. I haven't heard the paper champion thing in quite a while since I guess I used to follow boxing, but yeah. Nice. Yep.
Cool.
Well, that's it for me.
All right, sweet. All right, well, thanks again, Luke and Alan. The show is yours, dude.
All right. Well, that is it. That's
man.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Luke. Well, that's the Nationals recap. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Any questions, comments, leave them down below, and hopefully Luke will see them and we can get back to you. And hopefully we'll get back on schedule with our normal routine maybe next week. We'll see you next time.